Hi, everyone. We will get started in just a bit, and I will drop our icebreaker in the chat. And so if you can also include your name, organization, and pronouns, and then we're going to be going through what is your favorite springtime activity? And I'll read a couple from the chat in just a bit, but we'll give everyone a chance to get settled. All right, I can get us started. My name is Maria Mendoza. I am an Early Learning Hub coordinator, she, her, aya pronouns. And my favorite springtime activity, I think, is going to like the farmers markets or just any outdoor market. I know I live in Washington, so closer up here to Longview. They have like a Mexican market that they have going every weekend right now, and I really enjoy going to that as well. So yeah, just getting some more outdoor time, but market specifically. And I will read a couple from the chat. Let's see. I see Aaron, Birch, Blue Mountain. The only good thing about spring are the farmers markets. Yes, Aaron, I agree. Vanessa, Marion and Polk, Early Learning Hub, she, her, and favorite springtime activity is attending baseball games. I love that. Abby from Northwest, my favorite is watching my son play baseball. Renee, director of Southern Oregon Early Learning Hub. I love all things spring. Oh, I love that, Renee. So hiking, mowing my lawn, pulling weeds. Those are great. Marissa from, oh, it's moving quick now. Early Learning Services Director and watching my kids play sports. Thanks, Marissa. So there are a couple more in the chat. Feel free to take a look. But with that, I think I will pass it to Nancy to kind of get us through the rest of our agenda. Thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you and welcome everyone. Let's get started with the Early Learning Council members and a planning discussion for the June council meeting. Sue, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, thanks Nancy and Maria. Hi everybody, great to see you this afternoon. I hope you're all enjoying spring wherever you are in this state. It's a broad spectrum. As you know, the Early Learning Council at each of our monthly meetings focuses on a different priority that the council sets at our fall retreat. And as you know, also, every year we've had one of our priorities be the early learning hubs and ways to support the work you're doing. So our meeting in June is going to be focused on the hubs, and what we're hoping to do today is, and we'll go into smaller breakout groups, is to hear from you and get your ideas of what you would like to see us include in our meeting in June. We are just putting the agenda together, and with Gabby's help and Carrie and a bunch of staff people. So this would be a great time to hear from you and say what's on your mind. What do you think we should be hearing at the council meeting? And yeah, I guess what are your priorities for the council is another way to look at it. So let's see, I'm Sue Miller and I'm chairing the council. How about if my fellow council members who are on this call introduce yourselves? I see Katie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Brooks. I'm on the Early Learning Council, and my day job is I'm the CEO of the Bend Chamber of Commerce in Central Oregon.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. Liz.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Farrar Campbell with the Early Learning Council. I'm also the founder and CEO of Mighty Ripple Strategies. We focus on empowering communities to solve problems that matter to moms. And I'll pass it over to Ruby.
Hi, everyone. Ruby Ramirez, she, her, They, yeah, pronouns. I'm a newly appointed senior program officer for early childhood at the Oregon Community Foundation. Nice to be here. Nice to see you all.
Awesome. And just, I don't think, Liz, you mentioned where you live.
Oh, I am out in Eastern Oregon, in Condon, in Gillum County.
Right. Okay, thanks, Liz. All right, so I think Gabby has put together, well, let me see. Do any of you have questions about what the council is hoping to learn and the direction that we want to go in the next half hour? Okay, not, then Gabby, I think, has created some, what, 3 breakout rooms? Is that right, Gabby?
Yeah, so I'll get those open and then excuse me. Folks should be prompted to join a breakout room and we'll see you in there.
And how long do we have, Gabby,
25 minutes
in the breakout room? And then we'll come back together
to share. Yes.
to share. Okay, thanks, Gabby.
Oh, so you're muted.
As always, we ran out of time and we'll see how the other groups did. Liz, do you want to report out from your group?
Yeah, sure. So I'll just do some highlights. We had a lot to cover. I think the things, one that was some of the things that were common. I'll maybe start with that and then maybe Nancy can fill in if she thinks I've missed anything that was super important. But I think the things that a lot of the hubs shared that were common is some of the amazing work they're doing around early literacy and some of the really unique community-driven solutions and programs that they've come up with might be an opportunity to really highlight what's being done on the ground and have some really fun examples to be able to share with council members. Kind of going along with that was pointing out that funding, at least so far, has been short-term and is unsustainable. And so part of the council maybe conversation is how do we support that work long-term and allow the hubs and their partners to continue to do this great work that they're doing. We had several examples of other things that hubs are doing on the ground that they're particularly proud of, including a kindergarten transition program over in Harney and Grant County. And this was related to literacy, but there was a children's wellness summit in my area, Four Rivers, and a neat video program that they're doing targeted to families at risk of child welfare involvement, with a sort of a series of videos on all kinds of things, including gun storage and things like that. That was in partnership with their local public health, and so might be a good example of some cross-sector work that's being done. And then also some of the work that hubs are already doing on the ground in support of Every Child Belongs. So some of the trainings, Cards for Connection training, actually bringing in folks on site to meet with providers in every county to talk about preschool life skills and de-escalation and all kinds of things for providers. And then there's also some questions kind of connected with that about how the pyramid model rollout is going to look, how it needs to look. And so there may be an opportunity to do sort of a section on Every Child Belongs and what that looks like from a hub level. And then again, lots of other great examples. One of the things that I think popped for just about every hub, and this is related to the rules that are coming out, but I just wanted to flag it on here. In particular, the backbone discussions are, I think, creating some heartburn in some regions. And there's still, I think, a feeling of wanting to make sure that there's consistent support, but that I think folks who are happy with their hubs want to make sure that that relationship isn't messed with, and those who are struggling with their hubs need some help on how to sort of right the ship. So finding the right balance between those two things, I think there was a lot of feedback from our group about that we're not quite sure that we've got it. Was there anything I missed, Nancy or anybody else? Those were kind of high levels. There was a lot more detail in there, but
That was a great summary, Liz. Thanks.
Thank you, Liz, very much. Ruby, how about your group?
Yes, thank you. We covered a lot, so I'll see if I can hit the highlights. Similarly, this group also mentioned the work around early literacy grants. All the folks in my group seemed interested in highlighting that work. We also talked about cross collaborations with health and early learning and what that looks like. So Erin mentioned they had a grant with OHA around immunization hesitancy. And there are several other examples cross-cutting with CCOs and with OHA and highlighting some of that work and really thinking about how hubs work with the health sector to get information to populations, whether it's direct programming or not, but it's those communication channels and really helping folks navigate through these systems. We also talked about housing and the desire for better or relationships, period, with the housing sector across regions. Some regions do have relationships they want to strengthen and think about how they work better or partner together. But some regions don't have relationships at all or minimally have relationships. So really an opportunity to engage our housing folks in a conversation about this. And I think we've done that a little bit in the past, but maybe having some more tangible examples around that would be helpful. What else did we talk about? CCOs came up several times. Also talking about childcare specifically and how there is or is not support for infant and toddler care. We know that's a big need, right? And the conversation that has been had several times, but want to reinforce again about how we bring businesses into the conversation of childcare, and not just huge, large employers, but also small employers, and making the issue more local, right? Local economies, small local businesses also need to be engaged in this conversation. And so thinking about ways to start that effort or continue those efforts. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's the big ones. On the childcare conversation, also bringing up this idea of, yes, childcare supply building, but what role does the hub system play in sort of these advocacy pieces and education pieces about access and affordability for families? So there's a conversation there as well to be had, because while we're engaging in supply building efforts and a lot of folks, are partnering with their CCR&Rs, it doesn't get to the fact that it's still unaffordable for families. I think those were the big, yes, I think I covered
Awesome.
everything. Did I miss anything, folks? Maria, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that was great, Ruby. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ruby. All right. Katie, do you want to summarize what our group talked about?
I'll try. I'm paying attention to time. Are we supposed to be wrapping up here pretty soon? Yeah. Okay, so 3 overall themes, and I think there are a couple of more, Sue, if you could pipe in.
Yeah.
We had an interesting discussion about the funding uncertainties and what the hubs are being called upon for resources, information, et cetera, moving forward. with some of the decisions in the administration and what role hubs can play. We talked a lot about childcare referrals and roles of the hubs and some of the limitations there, especially when you're talking about, again, subsidized openings and how to get the people who are asking for them connected with the people who have them available. And in the chat, I just was reading it as we were logging off. Rod, was it you that was talking about the triangle? Some of the, I can't remember who it was, some of the great programs you had going on. We didn't get into that as much, but so some similar topics in that area. Sue, what did I leave out?
Yeah, I think you covered, yes, several of the highlights. I think that for me, the conversation that we started out with was, we know federal cuts are coming. We don't know where or how bad they'll be. And so many of the hub directors are looking at really emphasizing their role as a community convener to bring the nonprofits as well as the agency partners together as these federal changes happen and say, okay, how are we as a community going to address these changes? You know, can some nonprofits pick up something agencies have done, but they're unfunded, vice versa? So, so I think that convening role is going to be more important than ever as we try to navigate these very, very challenging times. And hub directors are all, some on this call are already doing that and beginning to make plans for convening the partners. And then the other thing that I didn't realize is that CCR&Rs really can't do referrals for childcare. They refer families to 211. And I can't believe I've not been aware of that in my 8+ years on the council, but I haven't been. So anyway, I think that's something that we might want to look at, because I think anyone who can provide access of any kind to families, we need to use them as a resource. We talk about access all the time. So nobody ought to be muzzled as far as helping families find care, is my opinion. Hannah.
Hi,
Oh.
Sue. I just wanted to clarify something that you said and that was in your breakout room. So CCR&Rs, we have a no wrong door note in their contracts with DELC. And so it's not that they can't do childcare referrals, it's just that we encourage them to connect families with 211. And if there's issues connecting, they can and will do referrals. And so we do have, I can pull some numbers and put them in, but we do have a lot of folks that at R&Rs that still do referrals. If community members or parents or families aren't comfortable calling 211, especially we see it really common in our Eastern Oregon region. So just a note, they can. We just refer to it as a no wrong door.
Oh, good.
Policy. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that and hope all the directors are, we're aware of that too.
We also have, in some of the CCRNRs, they have family navigators that are not paid through CCRNR funding that allows them to provide support for referrals. But
Okay.
we're not really funding them to provide referrals, which I think is, Sue, what you were getting at. And yeah, definitely that capacity is always an issue.
Right. So there are some workarounds as far as, yes, who could refer whom to where. Renee.
It might be worth clarifying with the CCR&R directors, because during that conversation, I had texted my CCR&R director asking if they were prohibited from giving referrals. And she said, per DELC, they cannot give referrals, but they can help families navigate using 211. So that's different than generating referrals themselves. So I think a clarification on what is acceptable, what's not acceptable would be helpful for all of the CCR&Rs to be on the same page, so there isn't any miscommunication and families don't lose an opportunity.
Thanks, Renee. And
Great.
thanks, Sue, for
Okay.
for surfacing this. Hannah, it looks like you're going to be able to follow up, and Norma too. So I appreciate that, and we can provide a message in our recap email afterwards if that would be helpful. I want to pivot us. I know it's hard to lead this conversation. We really appreciate having the council members here with us. But we'll go ahead and pivot over to the legislative update. I know Kathy's here to share some information with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Hey, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay. My name is Kathy Way, and I use she and her pronouns, and I'm the interim government affairs manager here at DELC. Many of you may also know Kate Dennison, but she just came back from maternity leave about a month and a half ago, and so Kate and I are continuing to tag team on all things legislative session. So yeah, I'm here to give a quick update, followed by some Q&A time on just what's happening with the session in terms of particularly around DELC's legislative agenda and our budget. So there might be other questions around other legislation, other bills that some of our partners. I know that Family Forward, for example, is invested in this CCR&R enhancement bill. We're aware of that bill. There's some language in there where there would also be a contracting opportunity with hubs. Just to be clear, we don't have a position on that bill, and we don't have a position on any bills that are outside of DELC's legislative agenda, but we have been in touch with advocates who've asked us questions about the bill. And so we're certainly here as a resource, but just want to be clear that we don't have a position on other bills that are outside of DELC's legislative agenda. So I just wanted to go ahead and just share my screen first with you all. As I mentioned, I have a couple of slides here, and let me make sure that everything's uploaded. Okay. Can everyone see this? Sorry, my computer's a little bit slow. Maybe just a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Perfect. Okay, great. So just a couple of things. We are, many of you know, relatively still young agency. We're created in statute in 2023, so just operating a little bit under 3 years. And so it's really important for us as a state agency to advocate for our priorities. And these are the priorities that I'll go over in the next couple of slides. But first and foremost, our role, particularly in how we show up in the session, is to make sure that we talk about the governor's recommended budget. So there was a process that was outlined back in the summer before session started with the governor's office in terms of a 1% cap that was put for agencies when requesting our budget. And so our session advocacy is really limited to what is outlined in the governor's recommended budget. And as I mentioned, we are here as a resource, so we're able to answer questions, provide some information to legislators and partners around our budget, as well as other bills that might impact early learning. But again, we are refrain from taking a position on outside legislation. Another key part that we do in our government affairs work is really to conduct bill and fiscal analyses. So the beginning of the session, there was a little bit over 3,500 bills, 3,500 bills that were all introduced in this long session. And by far, this legislative session had the highest amount of bills that were introduced. And so that meant our government affairs team was quite busy monitoring bills, looking at legislation that would impact early learning and DELC. Through that process, we've identified a little bit over 60 bills that would have an impact to our agency. and this also included fiscal and also rulemaking impacts. And then after the first work session deadline, we now have about 30 bills that are left, and the majority of those bills are referred to the Budget Committee or the Ways and Means Committee. Also want to mention that we are also in close communication with Cassie Brusky, who is the Hub's lobbyist. And so Cassie is a regular attender of our DELC lobbyist meetings. We are always in touch. And so, so she is your best resource to go to in terms of providing more information to Hubs around, your particular legislative interest this session. And then last but not least, really important, right? We continue to show up to advocate meetings, partner meetings, community meetings, etc., and talking to a wide variety of different audiences about not only DELC, but also our priorities this session. And then here, you'll just see that session is quite busy, and the long session is about 6 months. So it started the last week of January and expected to wrap up the end of June. And believe it or not, we are already in the first week of May. So we only have about 5 or so weeks of session left. And as I mentioned before, out of the 3,000 plus bills that were introduced, more than half of them have died, meaning they are not moving forward this session. And the remainder of the bills are now moving through the House chamber and the Senate chamber to receive full votes in those chambers. And then for the majority of the bills, there's our last count was about 500 bills that are just currently sitting in the Ways and Means Budget Committee. So that is a lot of bills with fiscal implications. And as many of you have probably been hearing the legislature, we are anticipating a really tough budget cycle. And the next revenue, the next and the latest revenue forecast that will come out is next week on May 14th. And that is the big revenue forecast where legislators will know exactly how much funding they will have to spend on programs, agencies, etc. So we're all waiting and anticipating on that May revenue forecast date to see how much money there is in our state to fund for the next 2 years. And then another big deadline is on May 23rd. So this is when bills that are currently still alive must have had a second work session, or else they die in their committee. As I mentioned, the target date end of session is on June 18th, but constitutionally, session is required to end by June 29th. So we have several bills under DELC's legislative agenda that I just wanted to quickly go over. And again, these slides have been shared in advance also. So you can also read more in detail about the bills that we have that we're championing this session. But House Bill 2811, this is the Imagination Library of Oregon program. So this is really to continue on this wonderful free book gifting program that mails high quality, age-appropriate books to children all throughout Oregon from birth to 5. And this is a reintroduction of a bill that didn't pass in the 2023 session, but it included a $1.7 million amount to get this program started. So what the bill will do this session is really codify the Imagination Library of Oregon program in statute. And there's also additional funding included in this bill, $2.2 million, to continue the great work that the Dollywood Foundation has started with many community-based partners to, again, get books into the hands of children and really inspire early literacy as well as the love of reading at a young age. And then we also have a really some exciting news to share. So as of last week, there are all of Oregon's 36 counties now are have access to this program, enrolled in this program. And so I believe the Dolly Parton Imagination Library of Oregon just sent out a big press release about it. Happy to share more information, but the program is now live and operating in all 36 counties. So that's very exciting. And then House Bill 2814 is really our technical fix bill that was brought forward by our Child Care Licensing Division. There are several inconsistencies right now in terms of statutory requirements by the different provider types that we have. So this oftentimes provides barriers and obstacles for providers. And so the bill is it's a series of different technical adjustments to make sure that licensing statutes are all consistent amongst our provider types. And we just heard today that this bill passed unanimously outside of the Senate Early Childhood and Behavioral Health Committee just about 15 minutes ago. So we're really excited to see this bill moving forward. And then our last but not least, we have House Bill 2815, which is our Tribal Early Learning Plan and Fund bill. And so this really builds upon the many years of engagement with our Tribal Advisory Committee, or the TAC. It really centers the sovereignty and the self-determination of Oregon's 9 federally recognized tribes, for them to come up with strategies, a plan, right, to really identify ways that they want to continue supporting families and children in their communities and in their respective tribes. So there is funding that is set aside for this bill that is included in the governor's recommended budget of about $4.7 million, and that is to allocate $500,000 to each tribe to come up with this plan, and also to align their efforts with DELC's efforts as well. So we're really excited to see this legislation moving forward as well. And then last but not least, Senate Bill 5514 is DELC's big agency budget bill. The goal here with our budget bill is really to continue expanding our early literacy efforts and also establish Oregon as a predictable funder of early learning. And many of you mentioned that with, a lot of the uncertainty in the federal landscape, we are also monitoring, right, like how changes on the congressional federal level would impact DELC and our programming. So we are absolutely keeping a close eye on what's happening on the federal level. But in terms of our ask in front of the legislature, we have $1.5 billion that we are asking for as an agency, and over $25 million is in new investments. We're advocating for stable funding, no reductions to programs or operations. And we also have an additional $117 million in general fund to backfill federal ARPA investments in ERDC. And I'll just move on to the next couple of slides. So this is just a further breakdown of our policy option packages, or otherwise called POPs. So these are individual packages that we are also advocating for this session. POP 101, this is really making sure that we have strong operations and strong support to really administer our programs, right? So we want to make sure that we have the right number of people who are in our payroll, who are doing accounting, who are processing things to really meet the needs of our providers, as well as all the communities that we serve. And we also want to say that right now, DELC's operation is relatively lean, and so only about 9 to 10% of our current budget is on operations, and 91% is really focused on service delivery, program and service delivery. So we want to underscore that we need additional investments to make sure that we have folks in-house, right, that could continue doing work. And then Pop 580 again is really speaking to all of the work that we're doing around improving, enhancing early literacy. So you'll see here some of the breakdown costs of additional programs that we would like to see funded. Pop 105, it comes from our childcare licensing division, and this $3.1 million is all federal funding. So again, just we'll see what happens with the federal landscape, but this is really going to allow our childcare licensing division to really meet the caseloads, right? Getting us closer to national best practices, and then also allowing our childcare licensing division to meet better customer needs. Language, as well as making sure that we are in compliance. And then the two that I mentioned was the Tribal Early Learning Fund. This is the $4.7 million. That is included in the governor's recommended budget, again, to really honor the self-determination, sovereignty of Oregon's 9 federally recognized tribes. And then last but not least, we have $4.3 million as an ask to continue expanding our work around our Every Child Belongs program. So this is a program that we have in place to prevent suspension and expulsion in early childhood programs, and these infant early child mental health consults will be providing regional support to providers to really help provide resources and additional help to providers and children in care. So I think this is my last slide, but here's a visual of where our DELC bills are. So you'll see here that House Bill 2811 and House Bill 2815. So those are bills with an associated fiscal to implement. So they are currently in the Joint Ways and Means Committee. And again, we're trying to find the fate of many of these bills that are in Ways and Means after the May 14th revenue forecast comes out. And then House Bill 2814, which is our childcare licensing technical fix bill, passed out of the House chamber last month. So that was one of our first bills to pass out of the House. It received a public hearing in the Senate Early Childhood and Behavioral Health Committee, passed out of that committee just today, and that bill is on its way to the Senate. So that will be one of our first bills to hopefully get the signature from the governor and become law. And then Senate Bill 5514 is our DELC budget bill. So that is currently sitting in the Joint Ways and Means Committee. And that was my last slide. This is just our contact information. So as I mentioned before, I'm here through the end of June, really helping support our government affairs team throughout the legislative session. Kate Dennison is our government affairs manager. And so please feel free to reach out and contact any one of us if you'd like to chat more. So I will go ahead and I'll stop sharing my screen now and see if folks have questions. But just appreciate this invitation for us to present, and hopefully that was informative and helpful.
Thanks, Kathy. Let's give it just another minute to see if there are any questions. No? Okay. I think that's because it was a really comprehensive update. Thank you so much, Kathy. Appreciate your time. And now we can move on to Carla for a fiscal update.
Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. And hopefully you can see my screen. If I could get maybe like a thumbs up or something, that would be awesome. Great, thanks. All right, so I am here today to just do some fiscal updates as we get close to the end of the biennium, new agreements. There's a lot of stuff happening right now in my world. So I wanted to just kind of give some updates. You should have received these slides ahead of time. There's a lot of dates and things like that that I don't expect anyone to remember. But some standard updates that we have is the upcoming quarterly reports and expenditure reports and claims are due at the end of May. Just make sure to submit those via Smartsheet and submit your claims via AMS by the end of the month. And if there is a need for an extension, please feel free to use the Smartsheet request, and that'll go to Maria, Nancy, and myself for review. Yeah, that would be super appreciative as long as we're getting close to the end of the biennium. Fiscal monitoring. We are currently in the middle of my fiscal monitoring process. As a reminder, the documents are due on May 15th. You should have received, and this is where it's a little tricky here. So you should have received emails from Delk IT for a guest access to our Microsoft SharePoint. So you should have received an email from someone directly from our IT department, and then you should have received an email from Microsoft, like an automated email request, inviting you to gain the access. And it would have only gone to one person usually per hub. If you did not get those emails or were having struggles accessing it, because I know a couple people were having some issues and you haven't already reached out to me, please let me know as soon as possible so I can help troubleshoot. And if we can't get it to work due to security firewalls, there's a couple different reasons why it wasn't working for some people. We can look at alternate options to be able to get the documents to me by the 15th. Yes, I'm trying to think if there's something else about monitoring I wanted to share. Oh, and then once you, if you do end up getting the access through the Microsoft, our SharePoint, please still let me know so I can give you specific access to a folder so you can drop the files into it. So I do need to know once you went through that process successfully so I can give you the folder. Special shout out to the 3 hubs that have already submitted their documentation. 2 of them which were able to submit it using the SharePoint. So I know it works. So definitely let me know if you're having issues so I can help walk you through that. Before I go into spend down, are there any questions regarding your standard quarterly reports and expenditure reports or the fiscal monitoring? I don't know if there's anything in the chat. I'm struggling to pull up the chat. So Nancy, can you let me know if anything pops up via there?
I'm looking and no, I don't see anything in the chat, Carla.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the 23-25 spend down or end of biennium for both your hubs agreement, and I will briefly touch on coordinated enrollment as well in a couple slides. But for the hub grant, the majority of the hub funds expire on June 30th of 2025. In your, on the slide, you can see on the right-hand side that there is a sample of a disbursement table. This is the disbursement table that is in your agreement. It will probably look a smidge different because this is the original agreement. It doesn't include the birth through 5 literacy plan funds, but it will look really similar to this. All of the things in that top section that are highlighted yellow do expire on June 30th. So you want to spend down those funds. So coordination, stable, healthy, attached, KPI, and Title 4B2 family supports and family preservation, with the caveat that the Title 4B2 funds, I can technically move them over one more quarter into the summer if you absolutely need to. It is a little cumbersome, to be completely honest with you, and it probably would involve an amendment of some sort. So if you can spend your funds by June 30th, for that specific category, that would be amazing. But if for some reason your hub is struggling, feel free to reach out to me, or I will be reaching out as well if I'm noticing that you still have a lot of money left over after I get the claims from this current quarter that we're wrapping up right now. And then those claims are due by August 30th per your agreement. If it's at all possible to try to get the claiming in by the 15th, I would love you forever and ever. But I do know that the agreement is on the 30th, but the 15th just makes it a little bit easier for accounting purposes. And just it's really important that we try not to go beyond the August 30th date at all possible for claiming. And then the second part is your July through September funds. Those funds do not exist yet in Awards Management System, or AMS. We will load those funds in over the summer because we have to wait for the start of the biennium for those dollars to show up in AMS. And KPI, coordination, and stable, healthy, attached funds during this July through September period can be carried over into the new agreement if needed. People who have done this agreement last biennium or the biennium prior are familiar with it, but I will walk through that process when we get towards the end of the official end of our agreement in the fall. And help people get through the, if we need to calculate any carryover into the new agreement for those funding streams. And that would just be those funds from the July through September period, so just one quarter's worth. And then one thing I wanted to know, if you can see in that photo there that I'm sharing, you can keep track of your allocation and spend down in AMS. I know not all of the hub directors use AMS on a daily basis. A lot of people rely on the business office or a fiscal person to support. Most of you should have some programmatic access. At least I gave everyone access when we first moved to AMS a year ago. You might have been deactivated if you never logged in, but I'm more than happy to reactivate you. But if you pull up any sub-grant, which is a funding stream, you will be able to see the grant end date, the final claim date, the amount that you're getting for that specific award type, how much you have already had approved in claims, and how much you have left in that fund. So I know sometimes that's helpful for people when they're keeping track of what they have left in their funding. So I wanted to share that that is there as well. And then for coordinated enrollment, it's a little bit more cut and dry. All funds expire June 30th for the current agreement. There is no carryover, there's no rolling over. The funds just end on June 30th. You get a fresh set of funds on July 1st. And then for the 25-27 agreement, we have the build work is still in process right now with the work groups. Some of you guys are participating in those work groups. And as we wait to see what the outcome of that amazing work is, we don't want to stall the work that's going out in community right now. So we will be amending the current agreement for 9 months and give you an additional 9 months worth of funding with the same requirements that are in your agreement now to ensure that the work continues throughout the summer and into the fall, while we as an agency review the outcomes of the work groups and design what future agreements for coordinated enrollment look like. But I did want to let you know that we will be sending an amendment out at the end of June. And once we know how much money we get, we're still waiting on, the legislative process like Kathy had mentioned earlier. And then any questions regarding spend down before I go into some 25-27 updates? Okay. So for 25-27, I just wanted to come in and give some pretty brief high-level updates on things that we already know are kind of locked in for the new agreement. There is still a lot of things that we're working through and fine-tuning some processes, but we did want to let you know that for 25-27, we will be splitting the grant into 2 smaller grants. One will be October 1st, 2025, which is the traditional start date to match up with the old one ending. And that one will go through September 30th of 2026. And then we will have a second one on October 1st of 2026. And that one will go through June 30th, 2027. Couple reasons for this. We're splitting it into 2 grants to line up with some of the rules work that is currently happening. Since it's a phased approach to the rules, we wanted to kind of do a phased approach this upcoming biennium to make sure that we're thoughtfully including any updates in the agreements. And then the second piece is transitioning us over as the hub agreement to ending the agreement on the same cycle as almost all of the other grants out at our agency. The hub currently was on an October through September cycle, which is what we call an off cycle. And it wasn't lining up with almost every other grant that we have. And just grants across the board tend to, and fiscal years as well for quite a few of you, end on June 30th. So we wanted to line that up and kind of just streamline our processes a bit. It won't affect the amount of funding that you're getting. Back to, we're still waiting on approval on, our budget to know exactly how much it is, but the dollar amounts won't change. They'll just be split based on how many quarters are in, mini grant 1 and mini grant 2, and we will be able to carry over anything that's not spent in that first grant. We can roll it over to that second one for you. So you don't have to worry about having to spend down, even though they're 2 separate agreements. It's mostly going to be for programmatic updates and the rules updates and those things, not on the fiscal side. We will be having 4 to 5 funding streams, if you count Title IV-B twice. This upcoming cycle, we'll still have our coordination funds. We will still have KPI. We will have Birth Through 5 literacy plan, pending legislative approval. And we will still have Title IV-B2 family support and Title IV-B2 family preservation, pending confirmation of funding. What you don't see is Stable Healthy Attached. So the Stable Healthy Attached funds will now be consolidated back into the coordination funds. This will help eliminate duplicate reporting, because we were noticing that a lot of reporting for Title IV-B was just the same as what was being reported for Stable Healthy Attached in multiple places, because the work is almost identical. So we're wanting to eliminate some of that duplicate reporting. We wanted to add some flexibility to the funds. Not every hub was needing the Title IV-B2 funding streams and Stable Healthy Attached, which, like I said, does really similar type work. So it gives the hubs the ability to be flexible with that funding as well. But you could still use it to complement your Title IV-B2 if that's your plan for your region and what you're doing is working really well. We're not saying you can't use it for that. We're just giving you the flexibility to use it a little bit better in your regions. And then we are still developing the scope of work for 25-27 and finalizing some additional information. So as we are get that all lined up in the upcoming months, you'll see more and more of me as we share this information as we get ready for the new biennium. And I think that was all I had for slides. I will stop sharing my screen if I can, because I am the worst when it comes to Zoom. There we go. And happy to answer any questions.
Carla, I'm seeing a few questions in the chat.
Yeah.
Let's see. Starting with Athena, will funding roll over between the 2 cycles?
For the 25-27 agreement?
I believe so. Is that right,
Yes.
Athena?
Yeah.
Yes. Because it's within the same biennium, the funding, I can shift it around. I'm not hitting any state of Oregon biennium deadlines. So even though they're 2 separate agreements, yeah, I'm going to just be, you won't even need to do anything. Once we're done, we'll just, move them over for you.
And then Rod had a question about birth through 5 funds for July through September. Yeah, elaborate on that a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So because the first iteration of the Birth Through 5 funds was kind of, we were calling it a pilot. It was that initial one-time funds. It did have a June 30th due date. We are going to not have funds over the summer for Birth Through 5. So the early literacy team has time to know, how much they're getting from the legislative session, and then make sure that they're all set. Oh my gosh, I can't talk. All set with their distributions that they're doing with the early literacy, and it'll line up with the new with our new agreement come October. So yeah, we will not have additional Birth Through 5 funds July through September.
And then I see 2 questions for coordinated enrollment, and then we'll get to Lisa.
Jen, there's still a lot of work happening. So the question is the coordinated enrollment funds for 9 months and if they're going away after that. With the work that is happening with builds, we wanted to, there's a lot of, refreshing and edits and updates that we want to make to the existing coordinated enrollment agreement, but there just wasn't enough time. It being May 6th and the biennium, the agreements end June 30th, to give us enough time to finish the work group work, review all this stuff, and then figure out, okay, we have this information, what are we going to do with it? So this is giving us 9 months as an agency to really dig deep and figure out the best way of going forward with the fund. So there'll be something new or different after the 9 months. It just, it's not going away.
So do we only have the allocation we currently have? Are we not getting new coordinated enrollment funds this fall?
No, you'll get you'll get a new an amendment
Okay.
in June, and it'll be an amendment for 9 months, and you'll get 9 months worth of funds.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, so we'll take whatever you were getting, and I have to put an asterisk next to everything I say because it's pending legislative session. But what you're getting, I'm hoping stable funding, and then I'll take that dollar amount and then divide it by 24 months and then give you the 9 months worth at the start, and then you'll get additional funding down the road.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
We didn't want to stall any work that's active right now and prevent people from getting paid. Especially in the summer when you're trying to get kids signed up for preschool in the fall. It's an important time for this work.
Carla, we're almost at time, but I want to make sure that Lisa has a chance to ask her question.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Carla, thank you so much for your information. It's always enlightening. So I now have 2 questions. So I think I missed it. For coordinated enrollment, how did we get to 9 months?
Oh, so the agreement ends on June 30th. Usually we would do a brand new agreement for 24 months. We're not quite at the point where we can deliver a fleshed out agreement with a certain scope of work and all of that stuff. So what we're basically doing is tacking on 9 months to the existing agreement and give you more funding in order to continue the work while we as an agency write a new agreement.
I guess, is there magic in the 9 months? That just seems like an interesting.
I think that was just how long we thought it would take us to be able to not rush the process. We
Okay,
wanted
okay.
to make sure that we were thoughtful and have enough time to review the outcomes of the work groups, which I believe I'm not in the work groups, but I believe they go through June. And then look at, as an agency, review all the information and go from there.
Okay.
It's just making sure
I
we have
shouldn't read anything into the 9
Nope.
months. It was just a number. Okay.
is just a number
and
and how
then-
much time we think we needed.
And birth to 5 literacy, this may or may not be a question for you, Carla. I am curious what the department's thoughts are on how the birth to 5 literacy funds are going to come through. Is that going to be something that we as hubs are going to have to compete for? Is it something that we are like, what's that process going to be like?
That is a great question. Nancy, I'm not sure if information has been shared on that, since I'm not in all the groups that you guys participate in. I wasn't sure.
We are going to have the Birth to 5 literacy team joining us tomorrow for our KPI peer learning session, and they will be discussing a little bit more about that. And so I know that we'll have that recorded as well for those who are not able to join, but they will be going through some more of that information tomorrow during our.
Is there a reason that wouldn't come to the hub directors first before it goes to the KPI group?
Hub directors are welcome to join that space as well. I think it was just a matter of timing for the different meetings and trying to plug everyone in that are wanting time at our meetings.
Okay. Because it looks, I mean, I'm not able to usually attend, but it looks like there's maybe, if I'm reading into some of the slides that I did see for tomorrow's, that my staff sent it to me, it looks like there might be some changes in how the birth to 5 is occurring for this next biennium, which I think that's really important information. So maybe that could be something that we could request to come back to the hub directors.
Sure, let's keep that open.
That'd be great.
Yeah, thank you. And I think we're at time. And I just I feel like I'm cutting off a conversation and there might be more questions for Carla. So I just want to thank everybody for joining. We'll stay on the call for another 10 or so minutes if you have extra questions for Carla. Carla, are you able to stay on for a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just thank you all. This was a really packed agenda with a lot of engagement, and I appreciate everybody being here, and we'll send a recap out as soon as we can. And I also wanted to just share the exit survey so we can get your feedback on the meeting. We always appreciate that. Thank you. Good to see everybody.